I learned to be invisible long before I understood what loneliness meant. Growing up in Seattle, my family made it clear that I was the one who did not quite fit. While my older brother Jacob excelled at every sport, and my younger sister Victoria charmed everyone she met, I was the awkward one who stumbled over words, spilled drinks at dinner parties, and failed to understand the unspoken rules of social grace. My mother never said it outright, but her sighs spoke volumes. The way she would introduce Jacob and Victoria with pride, then pause before mentioning me, as if hoping someone would change the subject first. My father was worse. He simply pretended I was not there most of the time, his eyes sliding past me to focus on my siblings whenever we were in the same room. The exclusion started small, a cousin's birthday party where somehow my invitation got lost in the mail, a family barbecue where my mother forgot to tell me the date had changed. I was 15 when I realized these were not accidents. I overheard my Aunt Patricia talking to my mother in the kitchen during Thanksgiving. "You really should have left Adeline at home," Patricia said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "She just makes everyone uncomfortable. Did you see her trying to talk to Uncle George about his stamp collection? The poor man looked like he wanted to escape through a window." My mother's response was worse than agreement. It was resignation. "I know. But what can I do? She is my daughter." The tone said everything. I was a burden, an embarrassment, something to be tolerated rather than celebrated. After that, the exclusions became systematic. Family reunions happened without me. I would find out about them through social media posts, seeing my entire extended family gathered at a lake house or restaurant, their smiling faces a stark reminder that I was not wanted. My parents stopped making excuses. When I asked why I had not been invited to Victoria's engagement celebration, my mother simply said, "We thought it would be better this way. You know how you get in social situations." I was 22 and working as a junior analyst at a pharmaceutical consulting firm when I met Damien. He was presenting at a biotech conference, discussing his startup that was developing revolutionary cancer diagnostic tools. Unlike everyone else in my life, he did not find me awkward. He found me interesting. "You asked the only intelligent question in that entire session," he told me afterward, his green eyes bright with genuine appreciation. "Everyone else was worried about profit margins. You wanted to know about patient outcomes." We talked for 4 hours that night, then 4 more the next day. Within a month, we were inseparable. Damien saw something in me that my family never had. He saw someone worth listening to, worth knowing, worth loving. When he proposed 2 years later, I cried for an hour. Not just because I loved him, but because for the first time in my life, someone had chosen me first. Someone wanted me around. Someone thought I was enough. I did not invite my family to the wedding. The decision came easily, without the guilt I thought I would feel. They had spent years making it clear I was not welcome at their celebrations. Why would I include them in mine? My mother called 3 days after she found out through a distant relative. "Adeline, how could you not tell us you were getting married? The same way you did not tell me about the family reunion in Portland last summer," I replied calmly. "Or the one in Vancouver the year before. Or Victoria's engagement party. Or Jacob's promotion dinner. Should I continue?" The silence on the other end was delicious. "That was different," she finally said, her voice tight. "You know how you are in social situations. We were trying to spare you the discomfort." "How thoughtful," I said. "I am returning the favor. Goodbye, Mother." I hung up before she could respond. Damien wrapped his arms around me, and I let myself lean into his warmth. For the first time, I had someone who was truly on my side. The wedding was small and perfect. 50 guests who actually wanted to be there, who celebrated our love without reservation or embarrassment. My best friend from college, Natasha, was my maid of honor. Damien's sister Sophie welcomed me into their family with open arms. I danced until my feet hurt and laughed until my face ached, and not once did I feel like I needed to shrink myself to fit into the room. After the wedding, Damien and I threw ourselves into building his company. Biosynth Diagnostics was his vision, but I became his partner in every sense. My background in pharmaceutical consulting proved invaluable. While he focused on the science, I handled the business strategy, the partnerships, the regulatory pathways that would get our products to market. We worked 16-hour days in a cramped office, living on coffee and takeout, and the absolute certainty that we were building something important. The first FDA approval came 3 years into our marriage. The second came 6 months later. By year 5, Biosynth had contracts with 12 major hospital networks and a valuation that made headlines. My family did not contact me during any of this. Not when Biosynth was featured in TechCrunch. Not when we opened our new headquarters. Not when Damien and I were interviewed on a local news segment about healthcare innovation. The silence was complete, and I convinced myself I did not care. I was wrong about that. Some part of me still wanted them to see what I had become. Not the awkward girl who embarrassed them, but someone who had built something remarkable. Someone who mattered. The day everything changed started ordinarily enough. I was in my office reviewing partnership proposals when my assistant Yuki knocked on my door. "Adeline, you have a visitor in the lobby. She says she is your sister." I looked up from my computer, confused. "Victoria is here?" "She did not give her name," Yuki said carefully. "Should I send her away?" Part of me wanted to say yes, but curiosity won. "Send her up." Victoria looked different than I remembered. Older, obviously, but also worn in a way that expensive clothes could not hide. Her designer handbag and perfect highlights spoke of maintained appearances, but her eyes were desperate. "Adeline," she said, her voice overly bright. "Look at this place. I had no idea your company was so impressive." I stayed behind my desk, not offering a hug or even a welcoming smile. "What do you want, Victoria?" Her facade cracked slightly. "Is that any way to greet your sister? I have not seen you in years." "By choice," I reminded her. "Your choice. All of you." She had the grace to look uncomfortable. "We have been so busy. You know how it is with family obligations and social commitments." "No," I said flatly. "I actually do not know. I was never included in any of those obligations or commitments, remember?" Victoria shifted her weight, and I noticed the subtle signs of financial stress. The slightly outdated phone, the handbag that was last season's style, the way she kept glancing around my office, calculating worth. "Things have been difficult," she finally admitted. "David lost his job 6 months ago. We are behind on the mortgage. I thought maybe you could help. Just a loan, really. Family helps family, right?" I almost laughed. "Family helps family. That is fascinating, Victoria. Where was family when I graduated college? When I got my first real job? When I got married? Where was family during any moment of my life?" "That was different," she protested weakly. "You know how Mom and Dad felt about your social issues." "My social issues," I repeated. "You mean the awkwardness you all used as an excuse to exclude me from every important family event? The embarrassment you felt having me around?" Victoria's desperation overrode her pride. "I know we were not always fair to you, but you have done so well for yourself. Surely you can spare something to help your sister. David and I have 2 children to think about." "I have thought about your children exactly as much as you thought about me for the past decade," I said. "Which is to say, not at all." Her face hardened. "You have changed, Adeline. Money has made you cruel." "No," I corrected her. "Money has made me visible, and you cannot stand it." She left without another word, and I returned to my work. But the encounter unsettled me more than I wanted to admit. Victoria's appearance was a crack in the dam. If she knew where I worked, the rest of them would know soon enough. I was right. 2 weeks later, Jacob called my office. I did not answer. He called again the next day, and the day after that. Finally, He showed up at the biosynth lobby, using his charm to convince the receptionist to call up to my office. "Give me 5 minutes," he said when I came down to meet him, refusing to let him into the building proper. "Please, Adeline." We stood in the modern glass lobby, surrounded by the visible evidence of my success, and my brother finally looked at me like I was someone worth seeing. "I made mistakes," he started. "We all did. The way we treated you was wrong." "Continue," I said coldly. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture I remembered from childhood when he was uncomfortable. "Dad is sick. Pancreatic cancer. Stage 4. The medical bills are crushing them. Their insurance barely covers anything, and the experimental treatments he needs are not approved." Something twisted in my chest, but I kept my voice level. "And you thought of me because?" "Because you work in diagnostics and healthcare," he said. "Because you have connections. Because you are family, and despite everything, family should be there for each other." "Family," I said softly. "The family that excluded me from every reunion, every celebration, every moment that mattered. That family?" Jacob's jaw tightened. "I know we hurt you, but this is about Dad. He is dying, Adeline. Do you really want him to die, knowing his daughter refused to help?" "He has spent my entire life acting like I was invisible," I said. "Now I am simply returning the courtesy." "You are unbelievable," Jacob snapped, his charm evaporating. "We knew you had issues, but I never thought you were vindictive." "I am not vindictive," I replied calmly. "I am simply treating you exactly how you treated me. How does it feel, Jacob? How does it feel to be excluded? To be ignored? To be told you are not worth the effort?" He stared at me for a long moment, then shook his head. "I hope you can live with yourself." He walked away, and I stood in the lobby of my company, surrounded by everything I had built, and felt absolutely nothing. Or I told myself I felt nothing. The truth was more complicated. That night, I told Damien about both visits. We were in the kitchen of our new house, a stunning modern construction overlooking Puget Sound. The house was a statement, though I had not consciously intended it that way. It was visible proof that the awkward girl they had dismissed had become someone remarkable. "What do you want to do?" Damien asked, always leaving the decision to me. "I do not know," I admitted. "Part of me wants to help. Despite everything, he is still my father. But another part of me thinks about every time they made me feel worthless, and I want them to know how it feels." Damien pulled me close. "You do not have to decide tonight, but whatever you choose, I support you." I loved him for that, for never pushing, never judging, just being there. The decision came 2 days later when I received a text from an unknown number. It was a photo, and when I opened it, my breath caught. It was a screenshot from a business magazine. The cover featured Damien and me, with the headline, "Healthcare's Power Couple, How Biosynth Diagnostics is Revolutionizing Cancer Detection." The text below the image read, "Saw this at the newsstand. Guess you are not so awkward anymore. Would love to reconnect. This is Mom." Something cold settled in my chest. Not when I was nobody. Not when I was struggling. Not when I needed them. Now that I was on magazine covers, now they wanted to reconnect. 3 more texts followed over the next hour. One from Victoria, congratulating me on the article. One from Jacob, suggesting we have lunch to discuss family business. One from my Aunt Patricia, claiming she had always known I had potential. I showed them to Natasha when she came over that evening. She read through them, her expression growing darker with each message. "They are unbelievable," she said, handing back my phone. "Let me guess, not a single mention of the years they excluded you?" "Not one," I confirmed. "What are you going to do?" I thought about it for a long moment, staring out at the water. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, beautiful and indifferent, like nature always was. I am going to show them exactly who I have become, I finally said, and make sure they understand it happened without them. Natasha grinned. I was hoping you would say that. The plan formed slowly over the next week. Biosynth was planning a major announcement about our latest breakthrough in early cancer detection. The technology could identify markers 18 months earlier than current standards, potentially saving millions of lives. It was the biggest moment in our company's history, and media coverage would be extensive. I arranged for an interview with the largest business publication in the region. During the interview, I was asked about my inspiration and support system. I talked about Damien, about Natasha, about the mentors and colleagues who had believed in me. I talked about building success despite obstacles, about proving doubters wrong, about finding your own family when your biological one fails you. The interviewer, a sharp woman named Beverly, picked up on the subtext. It sounds like you faced significant personal challenges on your journey. I did, I said carefully. I grew up being told I was too awkward, too embarrassing to include in family events. I was systematically excluded from celebrations and gatherings because my own family was ashamed of me. But that exclusion taught me something valuable. It taught me that the people who matter are the ones who choose to see your worth, not the ones who share your DNA. Beverly leaned forward, sensing a story. That must have been incredibly painful. It was, I acknowledged. But pain can be transformative. Every time my family excluded me, I became more determined to prove I was worth including. Every time they made me feel invisible, I worked harder to become impossible to ignore. In a way, their rejection was the greatest gift they could have given me. It forced me to build a life on my own terms, with people who actually valued me. The article ran the following week, and it was everything I had hoped for. The headline read, "From Excluded to Exceptional: How One Woman Built a Healthcare Empire After Being Rejected by Her Own Family." The piece detailed my childhood exclusion, my rise in the industry, and my philosophy about chosen family versus biological family. It was honest, compelling, and impossible to ignore. The article was syndicated nationally. Within 3 days, my story was everywhere. News outlets picked it up. Social media exploded with discussions about family dynamics and toxic relationships. I became an unexpected voice for people who had been rejected or dismissed by their own families, and my family saw all of it. My phone started ringing off the hook. My mother called 6 times in 1 hour. Victoria sent a dozen texts, each more frantic than the last. Jacob left a voicemail calling me manipulative and selfish. Aunt Patricia posted on social media about how the article was full of lies, though she could not point to a single inaccuracy. I did not respond to any of them. I was too busy with interview requests, speaking invitations, and messages from people thanking me for telling a story that resonated with their own experiences. My personal pain had become something larger, something that connected me to thousands of people who understood what it meant to be excluded by the people who were supposed to love you unconditionally. The magazine feature led to more coverage. Forbes ran a piece on my business strategies. Fortune included me in their 40 Under 40 list. Harvard Business Review published a case study on Biosynth's rapid growth and market penetration. Through it all, my family's desperate attempts to contact me continued. They wanted to explain, to apologize, to reconnect. But their timing revealed everything I needed to know about their motivations. The morning they showed up at my house, I was having coffee on the terrace with Damien, reviewing the finalized plans for our expanded research facility. It was a Saturday in late September, the kind of perfect autumn morning Seattle rarely delivered. The air was crisp, the sky impossibly blue, and I was happy. The doorbell rang at 9 a.m. I checked the security camera on my phone and felt my stomach drop. My mother, father, Victoria, and Jacob stood at my front gate, looking up at the house with expressions I could not quite read from the camera angle. "They actually came," I said to Damien, showing him the screen. He set down his coffee cup. What do you want to do? Talk to them, I decided. But on my terms. I walked down the long driveway rather than letting them into the property. The house rose behind me, an architectural statement of glass and steel and success. I wanted them to see it. I wanted them to understand exactly what they had missed while they were excluding me from their lives. My father looked terrible. Jacob had not exaggerated about the cancer. He had lost at least 40 pounds. His skin had a grayish tint, and he leaned heavily on a cane. My mother looked older too, worn by stress and probably guilt, though I was not feeling particularly generous about her emotions. Adeline, my mother started, her voice wavering. We need to talk. We have nothing to talk about, I said calmly. You made your feelings about me clear years ago. I have simply accepted them. You made us look like monsters in that article, Victoria snapped, her desperation from our last meeting replaced by anger. Do you know how many people have sent me that story? How many former friends have asked me why we treated you so badly? I told the truth, I replied. If the truth makes you look like monsters, perhaps you should examine your behavior, rather than blame me for speaking about it. My father spoke for the first time, his voice weak. I am dying, Adeline. Does that mean nothing to you? Something sharp twisted in my chest, but I kept my expression neutral. It means exactly as much as my existence meant to you for 28 years, which is to say, very little. We are still your family, my mother insisted. You cannot just pretend we do not exist. I learned how to do that from experts, I said. You pretended I did not exist for most of my life. I am simply following your example. Jacob stepped forward, and I saw calculation in his eyes. He had always been the smart one, the strategic one. What will it take? For you to help Dad, to stop talking to the media about us, to just let this go? Money? We know you have plenty of it now. You think this is about money? I asked, genuinely surprised by his stupidity. Everything is about money, he said flatly. You have it, we need it, and you are using that to punish us. So name your price. What will it take for you to help your dying father and stop destroying our family's reputation? I stared at my brother, at the man who had stood by while I was excluded from countless events, who had laughed when I was called awkward and embarrassing, who had never once defended me. And I realized something crucial. He still did not see me as a person. I was just an obstacle to overcome, a resource to extract from, a problem to solve. There is no price, I said quietly, because you still do not understand what you did wrong. You think this is about money or revenge or media attention? It is not. It is about 28 years of being told I was not worth including in my own family. It is about learning to be invisible because my existence embarrassed you. It is about building a life without you, because you made it clear I was not wanted. We made mistakes, my mother said, tears streaming down her face. But we are trying to make amends now. Does not that count for something? No, I said simply. You are not trying to make amends. You are trying to benefit from my success. You ignored me when I was nobody, excluded me when I was struggling, and rejected me when I needed family. Now that I am successful and visible and impossible to ignore, suddenly you want a relationship. That is not amends. That is opportunism. Please, my father said, and the word came out as a whisper. I do not have much time left. I want to make things right before I go. For a moment, I almost wavered. He was my father after all, despite everything. But then I remembered being 15 and overhearing my mother agree that I was too embarrassing to bring to family events. I remembered being 22 and finding out about Victoria's engagement party through social media. I remembered every birthday they forgot, every accomplishment they ignored, every moment they made me feel like I was worth less than nothing. You had my entire life to make things right, I said. You chose not to. You do not get to choose differently now just because it is convenient for you. You are cruel, Victoria said, her voice shaking. Vindictive and cruel. We always knew there was something wrong with you. There it is, I said softly. The real feeling under all the apologies and desperation. You still think there is something wrong with me. You still think I am the problem. After everything, you learned nothing. I turned to walk back to the house, but my mother's voice stopped me. The cancer is in his pancreas, liver, and lungs. Without experimental treatment, he has 3 months, maybe 4. You work in diagnostics. You have connections to every major hospital and research facility in the country. You could help him get into a clinical trial, get access to treatments we cannot afford. You could save his life. I turned back to face her. I could, I agreed. I have those connections. I could make some calls, pull some strings, get him into programs that would give him a fighting chance. But I am not going to. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the birds seemed to stop singing. You would let your father die? Jacob demanded, his face reddening with anger. Out of spite? Out of consistency, I corrected. You excluded me from your lives. I am excluding you from mine. You taught me that family is conditional, that love has requirements, that some people are worth caring about and others are not. I was in the not category for 28 years. Now the categories have reversed, and you cannot handle it. My father's face crumpled, and he aged a decade in that moment. My mother sobbed openly. Victoria looked at me with pure hatred. Jacob's hands clenched into fists. We will tell everyone what you did, Jacob threatened. How you refused to help your dying father. How you chose revenge over family. You think your reputation will survive that? Go ahead, I said calmly. Tell everyone. Explain why a daughter who was excluded from every family event, who was called embarrassing and awkward her entire life, who was not invited to her own sister's engagement party, refused to help the people who rejected her. I am sure the public will be very sympathetic to your side. I left them standing at my gate and walked back to the house. My hands were shaking by the time I reached the terrace. Damien wrapped me in his arms, and I let myself lean into him. That was harder than I expected, I admitted. You did the right thing, he said firmly. They do not get to treat you like garbage for decades, and then demand your help the moment it benefits them. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to feel righteous and justified. But part of me felt hollow. My father was dying, and I had the power to help him. Was I really going to let him die to make a point? The answer came to me that evening when I checked my phone and found a text from a number I did not recognize. The message contained a single screenshot. It was a group text from 6 months earlier, before the magazine article, before anyone knew how successful I had become. The text was from Victoria to my mother, copied to Jacob and several cousins I barely knew. I ran into someone who knows Adeline. Apparently she married some guy with a startup. They are apparently struggling to get funding. I did not mention it to anyone else. No point in associating the family with another one of her failures. The date stamp showed it was sent just 3 days before Victoria had shown up at my office begging for money. My phone buzzed with another message from the same unknown number. Thought you should see what they really think of you. I am Stephanie, Jacob's ex-wife. We divorced last year after I found out he cheated on me throughout our entire marriage. Your family is good at hiding who they really are. Do not let them fool you now. I stared at the screenshot for a long time. Even 6 months ago when they thought I was struggling, they did not reach out to help. They just gossiped about my failures and hoped no one would associate them with me. The only thing that changed was my public success. Not their feelings, not their regret, just their calculation about what I could do for them. I showed the texts to Damien. He read them, his jaw tightening with anger. They are even worse than I thought, They did not want a relationship with me, I said slowly, pieces clicking together. They wanted access to my success. They saw the magazine covers and the media attention, and they saw an opportunity. My father's cancer just gave them an excuse to reach out. What are you going to do? Exactly what they taught me to do, I said. Exclude them completely. Over the next week, my family's attempts to contact me intensified. They called my office repeatedly until I had my assistant block their numbers. They sent emails that went straight to a filtered folder. They posted on social media about family bonds and forgiveness, transparent attempts to pressure me through public opinion. I ignored all of it and focused on my work. Biosynth was launching a new partnership with a national hospital network, and the regulatory paperwork alone was consuming 60-hour weeks. I was too busy building something meaningful to waste energy on people who had made their priorities clear. Then my mother did something I did not expect. She went to the media. I was in a meeting when Natasha burst into the conference room, her phone in her hand. You need to see this. The article was in a local news outlet, complete with photos of my parents looking devastated. The headline read, "Local mother begs daughter to help save dying father." The story painted me as a heartless daughter who had abandoned her sick father out of petty revenge, while they were just a loving family confused by my anger. My mother's quotes were masterfully crafted. "We know we were not perfect parents, but we loved Adeline. We are devastated that she has chosen to shut us out during the hardest time of our lives. Her father is dying, and she has the connections to help him, but she refuses. We do not understand where this cruelty comes from." There was no mention of the exclusions, the years of being called embarrassing, the systematic rejection I had endured. Just a sad story of ungrateful daughter versus loving parents. "They are trying to manipulate public opinion," Natasha said, furious on my behalf. "Make you look like the villain so you will be pressured to help them." I read through the article again, noting every careful omission, every strategic word choice. My mother had always been good at presenting the right image. That was why my exclusion had been so devastating. She knew exactly how to make herself look good while making me invisible. "This is going to blow up," I said calmly. "People love stories about ungrateful children and suffering parents." "Are you going to respond?" Damien asked. I thought about it for a moment, then shook my head. "Not yet. Let them think they won this round." Sure enough, the story gained traction. Within 2 days, I was receiving hate mail. Social media exploded with people calling me heartless, cruel, and ungrateful. Several business contacts reached out with concerned messages about my family situation. Someone started a petition demanding I help my father, which gained 15,000 signatures in 3 days. My family appeared on a local news segment, my mother crying on camera while my father looked frail and sympathetic beside her. "We just want our daughter back," she told the interviewer. "We do not care about her money or success. We just want a relationship with her, and we want her help saving her father's life. Is that really too much to ask?" The interviewer, clearly moved, turned to the camera. "Adeline, if you are watching this, your family loves you and needs you. Whatever happened in the past, is it worth losing your father over?" I watched the segment 3 times, analyzing every word, every expression, every calculated moment of emotion. They were good. They had managed to completely flip the narrative, turning themselves into victims and me into a villain. The public ate it up. "You have to respond," Natasha urged. "This is getting out of control. Your reputation is being destroyed." "Not yet," I repeated. "Trust me." The truth was, I had been prepared for this. I knew my family well enough to predict they would try to weaponize public opinion. So I had spent the past week quietly reaching out to people who knew the real story. Stephanie, Jacob's ex-wife, was happy to provide screenshots of family group texts showing years of disparaging comments about me. A former neighbor remembered my mother explicitly telling her I was too awkward to bring to parties. Teachers from my high school recalled my parents never attending a single one of my school events while making sure they were visible at Jacob and Victoria's. I compiled everything into a comprehensive file and reached out to Beverly, the journalist who had written the original profile about me. "I have a follow-up story for you," I told her. "But only if you are willing to be thorough and fair." She agreed immediately. The exclusive I gave her included everything. The text from Stephanie showing my family mocking my supposed failures. Testimony from people who had witnessed my systematic exclusion. Photos from dozens of family events where every family member was present except me, with timestamps proving these were not isolated incidents, but a pattern spanning decades. Beverly worked fast. Within 4 days, she had corroborated everything and conducted additional interviews with people who had known my family. The article she published was devastating in its thoroughness. The whole truth, what really happened between Adeline and her family, ran with supporting documentation that could not be disputed. It included the text from Victoria, mocking my supposed struggles, testimony from multiple sources about my systematic exclusion, and a timeline showing that my family had only reached out after my success became public. But the most damaging part was the interview with Stephanie. She did not hold back. "They are master manipulators," she told Beverly. "I was married to Jacob for 8 years, and I watched how they operated. Adeline was the family scapegoat. They blamed her for being awkward. But the truth was, she was just shy, and they used that as an excuse to exclude her. They wanted a perfect image, and Adeline did not fit that image, so they erased her. Now that she is successful, they want to benefit from her achievements while still blaming her for being difficult. It is disgusting." The article included a statement from me, carefully crafted to be factual rather than emotional. "I have spent my entire life being excluded by my biological family. They did not invite me to celebrations. They did not acknowledge my achievements, and they made it clear that my presence embarrassed them. I built a successful life despite their rejection, not because of their support. Now they want access to that success, and when I declined, they attempted to manipulate public opinion by presenting themselves as loving parents and me as a cruel daughter. The documentation speaks for itself. The response was immediate and overwhelming. The public opinion that had turned against me reversed completely. The same people who had called me heartless were now calling my family manipulative and toxic. The petition demanding I help my father was replaced by support groups for people who had been scapegoated by their own families. My family's media strategy backfired spectacularly. News outlets that had sympathetically covered their story now ran corrections and follow-ups, highlighting their manipulation. Social media exploded with people sharing their own stories of family exclusion and validation. I became a symbol for everyone who had ever been rejected by the people who were supposed to love them unconditionally. My mother tried to do damage control, releasing a statement claiming the article was taken out of context and that they had always loved me. But the evidence was too solid, the pattern too clear. No one believed her. Jacob attempted a different approach, posting a long message on social media about how families are complicated and everyone makes mistakes. The comments section tore him apart. People posted screenshots of the text messages mocking me, asking how that constituted a family that loved me. Victoria stayed silent, probably on advice from David, who had enough business sense to know when to stop digging. My father said nothing publicly, too sick to participate in the media circus his family had created. Through all of this, I focused on my work. Biosynth announced a major breakthrough in our early detection technology, capable of identifying cancer markers 20 months earlier than existing standards. The FDA fast-tracked our approval process. We secured partnerships with 3 more hospital networks. Our valuation doubled. I was featured in Time magazine as one of the most innovative healthcare entrepreneurs under 40. The article mentioned my family situation in a single paragraph, noting how I had succeeded despite being rejected by my biological family, then moved on to discuss my actual achievements. That felt right. My family did not deserve to be the focus of my story. They were just an obstacle I had overcome. 6 weeks after they showed up at my house, I received a text from Jacob. Dad is in hospice. He has days, maybe a week. Mom wants to know if you will come say goodbye. No media, no drama, just a chance to make peace. I stared at the message for a long time. Damien found me on the terrace, holding my phone with tears running down my face. He is dying, I said. Really dying. This is my last chance to see him. Do you want to? Damien asked gently. Did I? Part of me wanted closure, wanted to hear my father acknowledge what he had done, wanted some kind of resolution to decades of pain. But another part of me knew better. My father had not changed. He was just running out of time, and my mother was making one final attempt to manipulate me into compliance. If I go, they will see it as weakness, I said. As proof that they can still control me if they just push the right buttons. They will think they won. This is not about winning or losing, Damien said. This is about what you need for yourself. I thought about that. What did I need? I needed to prove that I was worth more than they ever gave me credit for, and I had done that. I needed to build a life without them, and I had done that too. I needed to show them that their rejection had consequences, that they could not treat someone terribly for decades and then demand reconciliation on their terms. What I did not need was their approval, their apology, or their acknowledgement. I had spent too many years craving those things, and they had given me nothing but pain. Whatever my father wanted to say to me now, it was 30 years too late. I texted back a single sentence. I made peace with your absence years ago. You should try to do the same with mine. Jacob responded with a string of angry messages calling me heartless and cruel, proving that nothing had actually changed. My mother sent a voice message that I deleted without listening to. Victoria posted something on social media about forgiveness that I did not bother to read. I blocked all of their numbers and asked my lawyer to draft a cease and desist letter prohibiting them from using my name or story in any media capacity. Then I went back to work. My father died 12 days later. I found out through a notification on social media, where my mother had posted a long tribute about family and loss and the pain of being estranged from a child. The comments were mostly supportive, from people who did not know the full story or chose to believe the version where they were victims. I felt sad when I saw the post, but not the crushing grief I had expected. He had been absent from my life for so long that his death just made that absence permanent. In a way, it was a relief. No more chances for reconciliation meant no more hoping they would finally see my worth. I did not attend the funeral. I sent flowers with a card that read only, "Goodbye." I heard later that my mother cried when she saw them, but I do not know if those tears were genuine grief or performed emotion for the assembled family members. 3 months after my father's death, Victoria tried one more time. She showed up at my office unannounced, looking significantly worse than during her previous visit. Her clothes were cheaper, her hair less maintained, and there was a desperate edge to her that made my assistant Yuki uncomfortable enough to call security before Victoria even made it to the elevator. I came down to the lobby myself, wanting to handle this directly. Victoria stood near the reception desk, her hands clutching an envelope, her eyes red from crying. "I am not here to ask for money," she said immediately. "I just need you to read this." She held out the envelope. I did not take it. "David left me," she continued, her voice breaking. "He took the kids and filed for divorce. I lost the house. I am living with Aunt Patricia, and she makes me feel like a charity case every single day. Jacob will not return my calls because I do not have anything to offer him. Mom blames me for how the media coverage turned out, says I should have kept my mouth shut about you from the beginning." I listened without expression, waiting for the real reason she had come. "I know what we did to you was wrong," Victoria said, tears streaming down her face. "I understand that now. Living with Patricia, being treated like a burden, being excluded from conversations because I do not have money or status anymore. I finally understand what we put you through your entire life. You understand because it is happening to you, I said. Not because you have genuine empathy or remorse. You understand because now you are the excluded one, and you do not like how it feels. She flinched but did not deny it. The letter is from Dad, she said quietly. He wrote it 2 days before he died. He wanted you to have it. I still did not take the envelope. What does it say? I do not know. He sealed it and made me promise to give it to you. Please, Adeline. Whatever you think of me, whatever I deserve, he is dead. Just read his last words. I stared at the envelope for a long moment. Every instinct told me it was another manipulation, another attempt to make me feel guilty for setting boundaries. But curiosity won. I took the envelope. Thank you for delivering it. You can go now. Victoria looked like she wanted to say more, but my expression stopped her. She walked out of the lobby, her shoulders hunched, looking small and defeated. I waited until I was back in my office to open the letter. Damien sat beside me, ready to provide support if needed. The handwriting was shaky but readable, my father's signature scrawl made worse by illness. Adeline, it began. I do not expect forgiveness, and I am not writing this to ask for it. I am dying, and I need to be honest about what I am leaving behind. You were right about everything. We did exclude you systematically. We did make you feel worthless. We did treat you as an embarrassment rather than a daughter. I could make excuses about how we thought we were protecting you from social situations that made you uncomfortable. But the truth is simpler and uglier. You did not fit the image of family we wanted to present to the world, so we erased you from that image. It was cruel and unforgivable, and I spent my last months realizing just how much damage we did. You built something remarkable without us. You became someone extraordinary despite us actively trying to hold you back. I am proud of you, though I have no right to be. I am sorry, though those words mean nothing now. I hope you have a good life, Adeline. You deserve it more than any of us. Your father. I read the letter 3 times, looking for the manipulation, the guilt trip, the hidden demand. But it was just what it appeared to be, an apology that came too late to change anything. How do you feel? Damien asked. Empty, I admitted. He finally acknowledged what he did, but it does not undo the damage. It does not give me back my childhood or the years I spent thinking something was wrong with me. It is just words on paper from a dead man. Do you regret not seeing him before he died? I thought about that carefully. No, I finally said. If I had gone to see him, he might have apologized in person, and I might have forgiven him in the moment. But forgiveness would not have been genuine. It would have been coerced by his dying, and my guilt. This way, I know I held my boundaries. I know I did not give in to manipulation. And I have his apology in writing, acknowledged without me having to participate in the scene they wanted to create. I put the letter in my desk drawer and never looked at it again. It was done. The whole ugly chapter of my relationship with my biological family was finally closed. The next 6 months brought changes I had not anticipated. My story continued to resonate with people, but now it had evolved beyond just family exclusion. I started receiving speaking invitations from organizations that worked with young people struggling with family rejection. I declined most of them, not wanting to become a professional victim, but I accepted a few that felt meaningful. One speaking engagement in particular changed my perspective. It was at a community center in Seattle that worked with teens who had been rejected by their families for various reasons. I spoke for 20 minutes about my experience, focusing not on the pain, but on how I had built a life despite the rejection. Afterward, a 17-year-old girl approached me. Her name was Zoe, and she had been kicked out by her family 6 months earlier. "Your story saved my life," she told me, her voice shaking. I was planning to kill myself because I thought if my own family did not want me, I was not worth anything. But then I read about you, and I realized that their rejection does not define my worth. I am working 2 jobs now, saving money, planning to go to college. I am building my own life, just like you did. I spent 2 hours talking with Zoe and other teens at the center. Their stories were heartbreaking, their resilience inspiring, and their gratitude for my willingness to be public about my own experience was humbling. I left that center with a new understanding of what my story could mean to others. I did not want to become a professional inspiration, but I did want to use my platform for something beyond just my own vindication. So I quietly started funding scholarships for young people who had been rejected by their families. Not through a big public foundation that would get media attention, just a private fund that helped kids like Zoe pay for college, vocational training, or startup costs for their own businesses. Biosynth continued to grow. We went public 18 months after my father's death, and the IPO was even more successful than projected. I became what financial magazines called a self-made millionaire, though I hated the phrase. Nothing about success was truly self-made. I had Damien, Natasha, mentors, colleagues, employees who believed in our mission. What I had made was a family of choice, people who valued me for who I was, rather than what I could do for them. My biological family faded into the background of my life. I heard occasional updates through mutual acquaintances. Jacob had started a consulting business that was struggling. Victoria was working retail and living with our mother, who had sold the family house to pay off debt. They never contacted me directly again, perhaps finally understanding that I meant what I said about boundaries. Then, 2 years after my father's death, something unexpected happened. I received a package at my office with no return address. Inside was a journal, old and worn, with my father's handwriting on every page. A note on top, written in my mother's hand, said simply, "He wanted you to have this. No strings attached." I almost threw it away without reading it. But that same curiosity that made me open his letter made me flip through the journal. It turned out to be a diary he had kept during the last year of his life, starting around the time I had first appeared in business magazines. I read it over the course of a week, a few pages at a time when I could emotionally handle it. It was strange reading my father's private thoughts, seeing the slow evolution of his understanding about what he had done to me. The early entries were defensive, full of justifications about why they had excluded me. She was always so uncomfortable in social situations. We thought we were helping her avoid embarrassment. But as the entries progressed and his cancer advanced, the tone changed. He wrote about watching me on television during an interview, seeing me speak confidently about healthcare innovation, and realizing that I was not actually awkward at all. I had just been beaten down by years of being told I was not good enough. He wrote about reading the article where I discussed being excluded, and finally understanding how systematic and cruel that exclusion had been. One entry, dated a month before he died, hit particularly hard. I saw Adeline speak at a conference today. I bought a ticket under a fake name and sat in the back where she would not see me. She was brilliant, confident, articulate, commanding the room in a way that made everyone listen. This was not a woman who was naturally awkward or uncomfortable. This was a woman we broke and who rebuilt herself without us. I am responsible for that breaking, and I will die knowing I destroyed my relationship with my daughter for the stupidest reason imaginable. We wanted to present a perfect family image, so we excluded the one person who was genuinely good. Victoria is manipulative and selfish. Jacob is ambitious to the point of ruthlessness. But Adeline was always kind, always genuine, always trying to connect, and we punished her for it. I do not deserve forgiveness, but I want her to know I finally see the truth. I cried when I read that entry. Not because it changed anything, but because it confirmed what I had always suspected. There had never been anything wrong with me. The awkwardness they used as an excuse was just a natural shyness that would have resolved with support and acceptance. Instead, they had weaponized it against me, used it to justify their exclusion, and created a self-fulfilling prophecy where I became uncomfortable in social situations because I was constantly told I was uncomfortable in social situations. The journal gave me something I had not expected. Not closure, exactly, but completion. I had spent years wondering if I was being too harsh, too unforgiving, too willing to burn bridges. The journal confirmed that my assessment had been correct. My father himself admitted that my exclusion was based on image management rather than any genuine concern for my well-being. I kept the journal, but did not share its contents with anyone except Damien. It was private. A final honest conversation between a father who realized too late what he had done and a daughter who no longer needed his acknowledgement to know her own worth. Life moved forward. Damien and I celebrated our 10th wedding anniversary with a quiet dinner at home, just the two of us and the life we had built together. Biosynth expanded internationally, opening research facilities in 3 countries and helping millions of people access early cancer detection. I hired dozens of employees who shared our mission, creating not just jobs, but a workplace culture where people felt valued and included. I saw my mother one more time, completely by accident. I was having lunch with Natasha at a restaurant downtown when I spotted her sitting alone at a corner table. She was reading a book, and for a moment, she looked small and old and lonely. She saw me at the same instant. Our eyes met across the restaurant, and something passed between us. Not forgiveness, not reconciliation, just acknowledgement. She nodded slightly. I nodded back. Then I returned to my conversation with Natasha, and she returned to her book. That was enough. We had both moved on with our lives, in different directions, with different levels of success and happiness. There was nothing left to say. The real victory came not from my family's suffering or acknowledgement, but from what I built despite them. Biosynth made a genuine difference in the world. The scholarship fund helped 43 young people pursue education and careers they would not have been able to afford otherwise. I had a marriage built on genuine love and respect, rather than obligation or appearance. I had friends who chose me because of who I was, not what I could provide. My biological family faced the consequences of their choices in ways that felt almost poetic. Jacob's business failed completely, his reputation in shambles after word spread about how he had treated me. The business community could forgive many things, but public cruelty to family members made people nervous about partnerships and deals. Victoria's divorce left her financially devastated and socially isolated, no longer able to maintain the perfect image she had valued above genuine relationships. My mother lived alone in a small apartment, her perfect family fractured beyond repair, learning too late that appearances matter less than authentic connections. I did not celebrate their struggles, but I did not mourn them either. They were natural consequences of prioritizing image over substance, manipulation over honesty, exclusion over inclusion. They had built their lives on a foundation of superficial values, and when tested, that foundation crumbled. As for me, I stood in the research facility we had opened in Vancouver, watching our team celebrate another breakthrough in diagnostic technology. We had just identified a method to detect pancreatic cancer 19 months earlier than current standards. The same cancer that killed my father would now be caught early enough to save thousands of lives. There was irony in that, though I tried not to dwell on it. My work would save people with the same disease that killed my father, but I had chosen not to use my connections to save him specifically. Some people would call that cruel. I called it consistent. He had spent my entire life teaching me that family was conditional, that love had requirements, that some people were worth helping and others were not. I had simply applied his own philosophy back to him. Damien appeared beside me, slipping his arm around my waist. "What are you thinking about?" "How strange it is," I said slowly, "that the worst thing that ever happened to me turned out to be the best thing." If my family had included me, supported me, valued me, I might have been content with an ordinary life. I might never have pushed myself to build something extraordinary. Their rejection forced me to prove my worth in ways I would not have otherwise attempted. "So you are grateful they excluded you?" Damien asked, a hint of humor in his voice. "Not grateful," I corrected. "But I recognize that their cruelty became my catalyst. Every time they told me I was not good enough, I worked harder to prove them wrong. Every time they excluded me, I built stronger connections elsewhere. They meant to diminish me, and instead they forged me into something they never expected." I looked around the facility, at the technology that would save lives, at the team of brilliant people who had chosen to work with me, at the life I had built from nothing but determination and spite. "They wanted me to disappear," I said quietly. "Instead, I became impossible to ignore. And that, in the end, is the best revenge of all."